You rock. Tyler's awesome. He keeps us so organized.
There you go. Absolutely. So you're hearing Molly Fortune, our executive director, who's on this morning. Also Tyler Clark, who's standing by in the chat. If y'all have questions, you can put them there. We'll have Q&A at the end. I'm Heather Hawkins. I'm the grants manager for the South Carolina American Revolution Sester Centennial Commission, also known as SC250. Forgive me for some of you who are part of the County 250s. You've seen some of these slides before. But we do have some folks on that are brand new to SC250 and the grants program. We want to remind everybody that there will be fireworks on July 4th, 2026, but we have lots more to tell. And that time frame is 1770 to 1783 that the commission has chosen as the American Revolution era. And that takes us from the Boston Massacre down to the treaties of Paris. And that is the time period that we're going to be talking about today when it comes to grants. And one of the part of phase one is we were taking a look at all the different places, well over 600 battles, skirmishes, and murders in South Carolina. That's a picture of second edition. The fourth edition of Parker's Guide is out now. It has it's over 600 at this point. And then, of course, you can always use Carolina.com as a great resource as you're doing your research on the battles and skirmishes and murders of South Carolina. We're thrilled to say that every county has their own 250 committee. And that means we always want to loop them in when it comes to grants in their community, just so everybody's on the same page. And that takes us into phase two. As we're putting out the sweet tea for visitors and tourists, we've made a few tweaks to our grant program to kind of correlate to that. What does success look like by 2033? We've discussed this as a commission, and we're looking at enhancing, ensuring, and equipping our folks. And part of equipping is doing this grant program. And we're going to talk about education and cultural tourism today. We're thrilled to have already released over 149. Actually, I think we're at 150 now. So $2.4 million has gone across our state, and we're continuing to spread the love into our communities. I do want to mention that this number is strictly through the grant system, the web grants that we're going to talk about today. These numbers are related to also the commission-driven projects that add to the number that has gone out, the funding that has gone out into the community. So, in order to speed things up and have things able to get ready for 2026, when we know there's that crescendo of marketing that will come, Molly and I just got back from the America 250 event, which was very exciting, and I'll be mentioning some of that later on. But as we look towards this timeline, this ticking clock towards the big celebration of the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, that a lot of the national marketing will be around, we know that we've got lots of things to get ready for those tourists who are coming. So we have continued to have a few counties that don't have their organizing grants. Today we're going to be focusing on the competitive grants, but a lot of this will pertain to that. The competitive grants we now have divided into three funding opportunities. This allows you to take a look at how much you're asking for. So monthly grants that are reviewed monthly. This does not mean that it's a stipend, a monthly stipend. It does mean that they are reviewed monthly. So you have an opportunity at the first of every month, put in an application. This is up to $15,000. We do ask that you complete these within 12 months unless there's other circumstances for that. Again, reviewed monthly, so you have lots of deadlines to look at. These are all at 3 o'clock on those dates, and match is not required. However, the grant reviewers are really looking at partnerships and cost share as something that might put you over the top when it comes to another grant that's very similar. Now you'll see a picture here. This is a drawing actually by Sheila Ingalls' husband about from her book that was funded to go out to the Spartanburg County schools about Kate Berry and her role in the American Revolution. So that's one of the monthly grants that has been approved. This grant distribution for most of our grants is 80% upfront and then 20% at the completion and approval of the paperwork. And we'll talk more about that in a moment. Pro tip, bundle similar projects together. So if you have multiple things that are similar, like you're looking at several signs, interpretive signs you want to do, put them in one grant. think big too. Think statewide. How can your county have an event for your county, but also make it more of a statewide impact? Also, we have major grants. This is $15,001 to $125,000. We do ask you complete these within 24 months, and particularly as we look at 2026 coming. These are reviewed quarterly, so please leave plenty of time for that review process because they often have to be approved by the full commission. And we want to remember that we only have those 4 deadlines. There is a match required. It's 20% of the total budget, not 20% of the ask. And again, distributed 80% upfront, 20% reimbursement at the final report approval. There are some exceptions, one of those being acquisition, where we can put 100% of the grant in with an escrow agent, but that's something we can work out. Be ready for Q&A at this level, so do put those commission meetings on your calendar if you're applying for this. We like to have somebody at least available via Zoom to answer questions during the commission meeting, because again, a lot of times these have to be approved by the full commission, and if not the full commission, often by the executive committee. And then we have our premier projects. These are $125,000 plus. These need to be completed by the sunset of the commission in 2033, no exceptions to that. These are also reviewed quarterly, and these go through 2 levels of review. You would have the regular review process where we have external reviewers and internal reviewers, but it would also then, if approved, would go to the full commission and you would do a presentation at the full commission. So once again, make sure you're putting that next commission meeting on your calendar. And those are all listed on our website, and I'll show you that in a moment. Match required is 25% of the total budget. And once again, 80% upfront, 20% reimbursement at the final report, with the exception of the acquisition. And pro tip, provide project master plan. We ask for 18 copies to be distributed at the meeting, and we ask that you be ready for a master plan to be attached as one of your support documents. Now, let's take a look then as you go into those funding opportunities. That's how you're going to choose which funding opportunity you're going for. But then once you're in the application, you're going to be specifying what grant type you'd fall under. And we've tweaked these just a little bit. You'll notice we actually have one fewer than we used to, and that's because we've combined some things and tweaked them based on phase 2, but also on taking a look at what we have been receiving. So one of the things is we've changed the description of this first one, museum and library style exhibit grant. And very traditional panel style is perfectly fine. What you're seeing here is an example from Jasper County, where they have a panel that has a map, shows you all the locations you can go to in the county. It gives you some history from the American Revolution, like Jim Capers, the African American veteran, and Lieutenant Governor Bull's there. So there are lots of things that you can do with just a traditional panel. This could be a panel that can move. It could go out somewhere other than a museum. In fact, we're encouraging you to take these to places where there's foot traffic. So that may be a way to look at it. And also think about digital. We've had quite a few requests for digital grant applications, so encourage you to think digitally or think in ways that could reach out to the next generation. Local activities grants are what they have always been. This is where you're going to do something in your community and you need support for it. But again, think beyond just your historians. Think about those people outside the tent. One of the things that we discovered, there was a poll that was done by the National America 250, and lectures actually ranked pretty low on what people are looking for, believe it or not. So that's going to get your historians, your traditional historians, and we want to do things for them. But think about how you could reach those people outside the tent as well. You have General Sumter here having surgery after the Blackstocks reenactment. So that's one way you can do it. We also have an example of a grant that we gave out for the Charleston Tea Party, where you closed the street and random people walked up and didn't know what was going on. There are lecture series, and of course that's fine to do. There are a lot of places though that are doing them in pubs instead of doing them at the museum. That way you get some traffic from people who maybe wouldn't traditionally go to a lecture. And then you have historic tourism and marketing grant. This is probably the biggest change from last year. This used to be the county asset assessment and historic tourism grant. This plan was only for the county 250s. We've received so many requests for marketing. Again, that is parallel with phase two, getting those tourists here, that we wanted to transform this grant type into a historic tourism and marketing grant. And as Molly often reminds us, those cultural tourists, those historic tourists, they spend 38% more than your average tourist. They eat local, they stay local, and they look for local experiences. So this is a great way to reach out to them is with this grant. And you no longer have to be a County 250 official committee to be eligible for applying for this grant. So that is a big change. And we were putting a lot of marketing under local activities, but this way we can expand that a little bit. Now, research, publication, genealogy, and digitization. So this is another one of those changes. We've kind of combined some things and emphasized some things that we hadn't before. Genealogy is one of the things that the committee knows is that who's in the tent, and ways we can maybe get some others in the tent is to work on genealogy. And digitization is also a project that we're seeing more of. We want to make sure that those who want to do research in this time period are able to do it and don't have to travel to 12 different locations to do the research. So we're helping several digitization projects. Now, I will remind you that you will have to provide a list of documents for your digitization. And that is because we want to keep within that time period that we talked about of 1770, 1783. And we recently worked with a group and they had to take some things out because they didn't fit those parameters. And this is actually the group I'm discussing. It's the Charleston Library Society. They received a research grant and they digitized this here, which is notes from a meeting about the Navy, and you'll never guess whose doodles these are. These are actually Alexander Hamilton's doodles that they have now digitized as part of their collection. We started off and we saw, let me flip back real quickly. So this is at Lynch's Lake. So this is over in Lake City. And this is a map of all of the historic sites, the historic plats there from the time period. A lot of those bounty land that was given after the American Revolution. They're going to have it soon on their website where you can search. They have it in a binder now of all of the pension records from that area. And they found some African Americans as well that fit that time period for pension records. And then they have this wonderful map that's both digital and on the wall. This added to some additional things to an exhibit that they have. So they have an exhibit, they have digital assets, they have physical assets that all came from that one research project. And this gentleman standing here is their intern that they brought on board to do it. Upcountry History Museum has also done a lot of research into pension and into a lot of where the soldiers are buried. And so they've got, this is a county that didn't have a lot of action in Greenville County, but you do have that being a location where people settled later on, and they're able to trace some of that to pension records. Lake Hartwell Country did a similar thing for multiple counties. So they both now have websites where you can search those things out, which is a great asset. Genealogy Centers was approved for $30,000 to assist with having additional books and additional assets that you can use to help with genealogy. So don't forget that was something that was approved, so is now part of that grant system. Education grants. This is one that we've had lots of requests for. One of my favorite ones, Anderson County has an American Revolution traveling trunk program that they've done. And this program is they have a template for us, and I'll make a note to make sure that we're sharing that at our next County 250, so that you can make your own traveling trunks that relate to your community. And this is something that you can even think about this as K-12, but also, as Molly would say, K-12 to death. So K-12 all the way through adults, not just for the young folks when you think education grants.
I actually
And
say K through dead.
the K through dead, yes.
K through dead.
There you go. And also education, I have to mention Liberty Live. They do an amazing job in the classroom. They also have the Canon crew that works with that, and they will come out. We have underwritten them coming to schools, and it helps to defer some of the costs, particularly Title I schools. So if you're interested in having them come to your event or to your community school, they'll be glad to do that. So Liberty Live is a great asset, and they're the ones who put on the reenactment there in Camden each November. And we're going to skip over the video, but signage and marker grants. Pro tip: it could be interpretive signs, tourism directional signs, historic markers, or 18th century roads. These are my folks at Utah Springs. We stopped there on the way back from the beach one year, and I had to take a picture of them reading the interpretive signs. So they make a difference when you have the story written out for people. And of course, site grants. So don't forget to train your docents. One of our site grants actually was just to train the docent for Fort Fairlawn. So it can be planning, it can be acquisition, development, or renovation. And we remind you that renovation is more related to adding value and not just deferred maintenance. So keep that in mind. And one of the grants we always want to remind people of is that they did approve $1.2 million for interpretive centers. We have several of those that will be coming online soon. Francis Marion, Thomas Sumter, Andrew Pickens, and Berkeley's role in the revolution. We have several that are looking at the African American in the American Revolution. So we have somebody interested in that, but we still have several of these that are wide open. These are centers where it tells you where else in the state you can find out more information, but it's a great place to come if you want to really learn that story of that person or that idea or that group of people. So we've got several of those open if you're interested in being the host for one of those interpretive centers. We do have some more grant examples on our website, and I will be updating that more in the very near future. Let's talk about what priorities the grant reviewers have. So when we train our grant reviewers each year, we remind them that we really have to look between those parameters of 1770 to 1783. And that is because this commission is chosen to really focus on getting South Carolina back on the map during the American Revolution. There are great projects that are French and Indian. There are great projects that are Constitution, but they are outside those parameters. So please keep that in mind. And always ask yourself, are you buy-in from the local County 250 committee? It's great if you can have a letter of support if you're not the County 250 to include with your application. It is not required, but it is highly encouraged. And again, you can get more done together and make sure you're not duplicating services that way. Demonstrate partnerships and matching funds, even if not required. This is something that they are looking at, and you get some bonus points. In fact, we're adding points to the review panel's points when they look at these next upcoming grants that they'll start on August 1st, the first deadline. They'll have additional points for that in the review process. Have a clear budget and thought out project plans. So this goes in particularly as you ask for more and more money, having that master plan for the premier project that you can share with commissioners. Even if you're a major grant and you're asking for a lot of money, it's great to have that master plan all thought out. It's good for you in the project, but it's also good to explain yourself and make sure that everybody's on the same page when they make a final decision on your application. And demonstrate impact and longevity. Impact, not just a one-day event. Think about maybe you can do it annually, or you can record it so that it's available for others to use, maybe in the classroom, in the local community. So think about how it can have more of a statewide approach. That's something else that as we tweak our review process for this year, we're going to be looking more at statewide impact. So think about that as you look at your projects. How can they not only affect your local community, but maybe have a statewide way to augment the impact? And of course, we're looking at telling a more complete story, those often unheralded stories of African Americans, Native Americans, women, children, and loyalists. We want to make sure that we are telling those. We have a page where you can look into more of those stories and find some links, including some contacts in the Native American community. So make sure you're taking a look at that. This is one of my favorite pieces here at Archives. This is Peter Harris's request for support later on in his life, and it's just a beautiful piece to have in and have in the archives here, as he talks about being one of the few stalks that still remain in the field where the tempest of the revolution passed. So an interesting piece there. Um, Give me 1 second. Here we go. So you do have to apply in the Web Grants program. And we're going to go through some best practices. There is a Word version that you can practice in. You cannot apply through the Word version, but you can use it to practice and write your narrative answers and cut and paste into your narrative. So that's always helpful. I will be updating it because we've made a few tweaks. So I will be updating those very soon. But they're very similar to what's online already. The project summary is your elevator speech. There's a second question about how does it relate to that American Revolution era that we talked about. The other really important part, both the project summary and the deliverables section, these get copied into your contract if you're approved. So the deliverables are what? It's very important to distinguish between the what and the why. The deliverables are the what, the tangible items that can be provided by the grant budget. Pro tip, you can number the items. One, I'm going to have a lecture series and I'm going to have 6 lectures. And 2, I'm going to have these videotaped and shared in the local schools. 3, so really number what the deliverables are going to be. You promise you're going to have this done with the money that we're providing. Measurement of success, again, number them. We're going to see how many people came to these lectures, how many students were able to see the videos, how much social media coverage did we get, or maybe television came, hits on our website. Those are ways to measure success. And then longevity, this is your why. This is the impact. How does this, so a lot of people say we want this to be the end result and they put that under deliverables. I ask that you put that under longevity. So deliverables are what, longevity is the why. And then budget best practices. Don't create the budget based on the most amount available, please. That almost feels like you are just building things up to that amount. Really look at what do you need, and go from there. Do your homework, get quotes, not all budget categories. So there's sections in the budget, as we'll see in a moment. Not all of those categories are pertinent to your grant application. Fine, skip them. If the grant request amount is part of a larger budget, please only include SC250 funding request in the breakdown section, not in the cost, and put the rest in the cost share section. Don't put the full budget in the SC250 breakdown section because it will look like you're requesting the full amount. All right, make sure to not exceed the total amount available for the grant type. And for the County 250 organizing grants, the requested amount must total $3,000 exactly. And again, if it is part of a larger budget, you can put some in the cost share. Personnel refers to staffing, while contractual refers to any person you are hiring for a specific task. So that's a good distinction, and we'll look at that in a moment. Again, personnel, that administrative overhead and planning should not represent anything more than 20% of your budget request. Limit this when you can. We're really looking at not having as much overhead as if you can. And then please limit food in the budget. This is something that we have paid for in the past. We're really moving away from paying for food because the impact of food is one time, and not a larger impact for that. Unfortunately, with match, it is not, in kind is not allowed for your required match. You can certainly document it. It's a great way to show partnerships, but it is not a part of your calculation when you're looking at your 20 or your 25%. And even if not required, we encourage cost share. If your grant does require a match, remember that the percentage is part of the total budget, not your ask. And I will be sharing these slides with you because this is a great formula if you're looking at, okay, so if I am doing 80%, if this ask is 80%, then what would my match have to be part of 20% of the total budget? This is your formula to figure that out. And again, I will be sharing these slides. So it's demo time. So give me 1 second. I'm going to stop sharing. Actually, I'm going to pause sharing and see if I can share my other screen. And we will go over here. Let's see, how we doing? Do we have, yay. Okay, so you now should be able to see my screen, which is I'm on our homepage, southcarolina250.com. We will be making some tweaks to this site, but there will still be a grants section that you can get to. And we're going to look at this. We've got lots of drop downs here. You can actually click on this here and you'll get some how-to, some reminders as you're planning your project. These are good things to look about. It goes through a lot of the stuff we just talked about. And then you can also click directly on the overview for the grant programs. And this gives you the overview of each funding opportunity and the grant levels. And you can also look over here and you can also look at the non-competitive organizing grants, monthly grants, major grants, premier grants, and then the types of competitive grants. You have information on the specifics we're looking for when you're applying for each one of these types. So do keep that in mind. Your second tab here is the link directly to the Web Grants program. When we have this webinar up on our YouTube page, we'll have a link on our webinar page. And you can also go in and watch some previous webinars. If you do need additional support with your application, you can go to the applicant support page and sign up for a consultation with me, a one-on-one. Previous grant awards, and then if you're awarded, congratulations, you can check out the grant recipient guidance page, which is the last page here. I'm going to go to the second tab and check out the Web Grants program. Now, if you've not already registered here, you can click to register and you fill this out. The one thing I do mention, actually, there are two things I want to mention. Always make sure that you're putting SC250 as your program area of interest. That way it comes to me to approve. Everybody does have to be approved. That way you don't have duplicates in the system. If you are already in the PRT system, maybe for a tag grant or something else, then you are in the system. It's the same program that they use at Discover South Carolina. So you don't have to register twice. And then you are required to have an EIN number, Federal Employer Identification Number, to register. If you do not, if I could have everybody mute, please. If you do have an organization type, you can do individual and it will not require the EIN number, but we would have to eventually have that for everyone. So keep that in mind. Okay, so once you are registered and can sign in, we're gonna, well, let's see if it's gonna do it for me. Now it's not gonna let me, let's see. There we go. Don't save them like I do. All right, we're signed in. Actually, let me sign in as my external user so it looks more like what y'all would see. Okay, so once you've got your grants started, you can have your approaching deadlines. We'll often put them at the very top here. So you'll see August 1st, and this is the one we're going to look at. But before we do that, I do want to show you how to start a new or clone an old grant. So you go to funding opportunities, and you'll see that we have 4 that are under the SC250. I'm going to go to the monthly grants, and a lot of times, let's see, move that over here. I'm going to go to monthly grants, and I'm going to go with, you can either start a new application, or I'm going to copy an existing application, and I'm going to go all the way to the bottom, because obviously I work a lot in the system. So I'm going to copy this one here. So I have to choose which one on this little radial dial, which one I'm going to copy, and then I hit copy application. And it starts you a new application, and it has copied over a lot of your same materials. Now, there are a couple things to remember. click on general information, edit your form, and make sure you retitle it. So this one I might do 2026 play or whatever you want to rename it. Make sure you're renaming it. Double check that everybody that needs to work on the grant is under additional contacts. They do have to be listed under your organization. And as you can see, I'm listed under a bunch of organizations. So make sure you're in the right organization. Okay. The other thing to double check if you are recloning an application is take a look at obviously your just review everything, to be honest. Review your cover sheet, review your narrative. We'll have lots of changes in your narrative because you'll have a different project. But under assurances and certifications, update your dates so that everybody's on board with the new dates. And I also ask that you look at your support documents. I'm seeing a lot of people clone, they're not checking these. So the current approved budget would be the fiscal year 2025, and last year's budget would be 2024. So we would need to update these two items here if you're cloning. So do keep those things in mind. Review every single one of the tabs before you submit. But let's go back to my dashboard. And I can also go to applications. So you can go to applications and your applications will all be listed. So I've submitted quite a few because I've worked with a bunch of people. But I'm going to go down here to this one because that's the one that's all filled out. So if you've already started something and you come back to it, you'll select it from your applications list in your applications tab. And I'm going to edit my application. And this one's actually all ready. So you'll see you're going to need check marks in each one of these as complete before you're going to get their submit application button. So this one doesn't show up. This will be red until you have check marks on all of these items. So let's go through each one real quickly. General information, again, I updated my title. I made sure that people that needed to be on there to make changes are under additional contacts. And if you need help getting somebody else under your same organization, please just reach out to me and I can help you with that. Also, if you have a previous grant that you need me to, someone has changed in your organization, I can also attach them to a grant later on. All right, let's look at the cover sheet. So are you located in South Carolina? Yes. If you say no, the only exception to this will be if you are doing research pertaining to American Revolution in South Carolina, then you could still be eligible. Otherwise, you want to make sure you're saying yes here, and your project has to pertain specifically to the American Revolution era. So we're going to say yes there. So the applicant type, we're going to say this is a government. And then I'm looking at my competitive grant type. I'm going to say local activities grant. Now, who is going to manage your grant funds? Best practice is that this is often the county, or this is going to be the person, they're actually going to be the grantee. So you need to make sure that your fiscal agency is on board. So it really needs to be the applicant here. And that here's an example where the Bexley County 250 committee with John Lawrence at the helm is going to use Bexley County as their fiscal agent, and Alexander Hamilton's going to be the contact there. Of course he is. But Alexander Hamilton cannot approve funds being used. George Washington has to approve them. So this is where I say, are one of the two people above authorizing officer? And we said no because we had to go through George Washington to get everything approved. So that's the way to fill this out. Unfortunately, I wish you could look people up in the system, but you do have to fill that out. You do not have to have this to apply, but you do have to have it to receive funds. This is a state vendor number. It's different from an EIN. This is a state vendor number. It's different from the state charity number. Go to procurement.sc.gov. There's a link right here. And if you don't already have one, you can sign up for it. If you are working through your county, they will have one. And as you finish each section, you're going to be asked to, there'll be another button right here that says mark as complete. It'll be orange. So as you go through each one of these, you'll be doing that. Now, every time you save, it's going to take you to the top. And every time you hit edit, it'll take you back to the top. Sorry about that. But we will have a couple things to mention here. Again, these two things are going to be copied into your contract. So it's very important that this is your elevator speech right here under your project summary. And I do ask that everybody mute if you make sure you're muted. Okay, and then we come down, we have data, what county are you in, and you'll select that there. And the county number of battles and skirmishes, this should auto-populate for you. So once you select Allendale, it will tell you tier 2. And then this will, once you save the first time, this will populate. And these are just two things that they look at, those reviewers. They look at how many battles and skirmishes were in your community. So is there a reason we're giving more money to an area that had a bunch of battles and skirmishes to talk about? Sure. But also, is there a reason that maybe we're going to give more money to Allendale because they need more economic development? Then yeah, because they're a number 4. So there's that to think about. So these populate as you fill in your county. Also, if you clone, make sure you update your prior funding. A lot of people forget to update this. So if you have received previous funding, say yes, the amount and what project it was for. And then this is a section, it's a lot of typing, a lot of wordage here and instructions, but it is important because it tells you what we're looking for under the execution of plan. And you can choose which one of these you're looking for, and it will give you different instructions. So make sure that you're filling this out. This, because I've chosen local activities grant, it gives me options of types of activities, and I've chosen hold events because we're doing this play. And then it gives me things like, where will the event take place? What are the details of the event? Who's going to do the planning? Who's hosting? So I'm going to answer those questions here. And I'm kind of giving it a 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the steps we're going to take. And here's when we're going to do it. 6 months out, we're going to work on playwriting, complete the play and send it to SC250 for peer review. 2 months out, we're going to be casting and holding auditions. So I've kind of given this as a step by step. I mean, you need this anyway to complete your project. Go ahead and fill it out. And it can, of course, change. But this gives us an idea that you know what you're talking about. You have a plan. You know what to do when you're getting there. Scholars and peer review, it is very important to include those different scholars. This time, John Adams is going to help from Paxley College, and curator Thomas Jefferson for the Paxley County Museum is going to be working on this project with us. And then we have promotion. This is important too. If nobody knows what you're doing, how are they going to know to be a part of the 250 event? So this tells us that you're thinking about promotion throughout the process. And then these two sections right here are super important. These are, again, are your deliverables and your measurement success. And if you are awarded, this copies into your contract, maybe tweaked a little bit, but this is where we start from. We pull it straight in from your application. Again, I love it when people number them. So we're going to have a completed play. We're going to have peer review. We're going to have a mini exhibit in the lobby during the play, and we're going to have web pages so people can learn more about the topic. And then, so these are the what? These are the things, those tangible objects we'll have at the end of the day, thanks to the grant money. The measurement of success, we're going to do attendance, media coverage, social media interaction, participation from the community, clicks on the website, feedback from participants and attendees. So that's how we're going to measure success. Then we talk about inclusion, and there are different ways to be inclusive. Of course, the traditionally disenfranchised, but loyalists, women, children. Also, just making sure your entire community is involved with the current community is involved with the project is essential to making everyone feel like this 250th is theirs. Participation and access. It's public money. We got to have the public has to have access to it. So the first year's presentation will be free with donations accepted. The community will be encouraged to participate. So this is if you have maybe a museum exhibit and you do charge for your museum, maybe you're gonna have a free Sunday, to kick off the event or something like that. So you want to make sure that there's some aspect, whether it's online or other, that will be the public will have access to this event. Engagement. So what are you going to go beyond just maybe you're going to do a teacher kit for the play. Maybe you're going to have an exhibit in your lobby, like we talk about here for the play. So ways that you can further tell that story and again have greater impact. And then here's the why. Here's the longevity. So this why are we doing this? So that our local community knows the role that South Carolina and Bexley County played in the American Revolution. Then our partnerships, who are they? What are they bringing to the table? How will you document that commitment? So all that can go in here. And then you'll have to save your form to be able to get to your planning and timetable. And some people forget to do the planning and timetable because you have to save, but you save and then it takes you to the top every time and you scroll down to the bottom again. And please note that when you see multiple buttons, they all mean the same thing. So edit is edit is edit. So now we're back to the timetable. So anytime you see one of these lists, right, sections like this, you have to be in save mode to be able to add a row. So we're going to add a row, and you would say an additional benchmark. You have to have a description, and then you put the date, and that's how you get those different rows at the bottom on your timetable. You can also click on them and edit them or delete them. And then the last thing I will mention, a couple people have not been able to say mark as complete because they had a blank one. So if you see a blank line at the top, you make sure you've deleted that row. That has kept several people from completing it. But again, once you're through with your narrative, you would mark it as complete and hopefully it'll let you. If not, if it's not letting you move forward, look for something in red that maybe it's a red around your question, or it will give you a note up here at the top of your screen and not let you and tell you why you can't go forward. Also wanted to mention you've got these tabs here. You see where it says app list, which is your list of each section. It only does 6 letters, so that's that general. This is cover sheet, this is narrative, then it's assurances and certifications, then it's support materials and budget. So the next tab is assurances. This is the CYA. I'll just be honest, that's what this is. But it says things like you're willing to meet with me, have an orientation briefing before you get started. You're not going to hire somebody who's been disbarred. You're not going to use intellectual property, somebody's, photo without their permission. You're going to do all those kind of things. They're just best practices. So please read over them. Make sure you're comfortable. If you are working on behalf of a different fiscal agent, make sure your fiscal agent, who is technically the grantee, is comfortable with this. So for this example, you would want your administrator, George Washington of Bexley County, to be comfortable with putting in this application and these assurances. I'm willing to say yes to these things if we get this grant, and make sure they're on board. And then here's the other thing for government applicants. We do encourage that you have your chief elected official. It's good practice just not to have them be surprised that you're putting in a grant. So Thomas Jefferson was the county council chair and of this county, so he's going to be our chief elected officer that will sign on to putting in this grant and approving these assurances and certifications. Thank y'all. I know this is a long production here, but it does, once you get into it, it does make sense. So we have a letter of support from our county committee, which is right here. And you'll see it's not required, but it is highly encouraged. And if you are the county committee, obviously you don't have to do that one. These 3 check marks, they are under required. So they are not meaning that they are complete. They are complete in this example, but these will be here regardless, even if you haven't uploaded something. So that does not mean it's complete. It means that they are required. So I have my W-9, I have my current budget, and that will be this current fiscal year, and then last fiscal year's financial statement. So that could be a 990 if you're a nonprofit. It could be a audit. It could be a financial statement from the end of the fiscal year that could go there. And then we do have these requirements if you are a nonprofit. So if you have a 501c3 or C6 letter, Secretary of State annual charity registration, list of board members, and mission statement. These are required by statute for any grant so that it goes to a nonprofit. So make sure that you are completing these, and you'll see I don't have anything over here. So you can click on it. It'll bring up this, and you can search and attach, give a description, and save the file. Now, read the parts in bold. So if you're not a nonprofit, you can skip on over that one. Required for County 250 organizing grants. So you're not putting in an organizing grant, skip right over that. This is new, required for premier projects, but can be shared by major and monthly grant applicants. Project master plan. So this is a named attachment that we are requiring for premier projects. So make sure that you're filling that in if you're doing a premier project. Required for museum and library style exhibits. If you're not using your museum, you're using another location, you do need to have a memorandum of understanding with that location attached. And the rest, again, you just read what it says and find the one that pertains to the type of grant that you are applying for. This is important. If you're working with a school district, make sure your letter of support from that school district is attached here. And if you have multiple ones, or if you have anything else that you would like to attach, you come over here and you add a new attachment, and you search for it, give it a title, and save the file, and it'll show up down here. This can be anything else that you think that would support your application. But again, since I don't need to do all these others, I'm going to just attach my County 250 support letter and my 3, and actually because I'm the County 250 making the application, I don't have to do that even, and these 3 would be the only ones that would be required for this local activities application. Budget. We're almost there, folks, I promise. So the budget, these are the same things we talked about earlier. These are the different sections, and these, see how it's a list type of attachment. So you've got to come over here and add a row. So if I wanted to add administrative overhead, again, keeping it to 20% or less of your ask, then you would attach it. You would put a category, like you have a photographer. Well, normally this would be staff, and this would be administration of project, and we're going to do $500, and we're going to save that row. So that has now been added here. And then if you add multiple lines, the total shows up in this yellow section. The next section is supplies, materials breakdown, and you'll see how I have multiple ones there, and this is the total. Equipment, I didn't need any equipment, so I just left that as 0. Contractual breakdown, again, personnel is staff, contractual are people that you hire to bring on. So you got your playwright and your graphic designer, and all like those are going under contractual. We're not acquiring anything, I'm leaving that 0. Other expenses could be marketing, got $1,500 there. Now everything above this cost share, that adds up to your total ask. So again, if there's a larger budget than the asks, don't put everything up here, just put the ask in those sections. The additional amount would go under cost share, and you'll see how these sections add up to the request. Here's the match amount, and this is the total project budget here. And the match is 63% of the total. So it would, if this was a major or even a premier project grant, that would be within range for that, with that match amount. So again, each section is where you're going to, and try to do the best you can with getting these as accurate as you can, because if you move from section to section, not line to line, but section to section, so you could change within here, but if you wanted to move some money from contractual to equipment, then we do have to, if it's more than a 10% change in the budget from section to section, we do have to make a contract amendment once you're into the grant phase. So just keep in mind, the better your budget is to start with, the better you'll be going forward. But we can make changes, so we can work with you on that. So once you have each section complete, marked as complete, again, you'll get all these check marks. You'll submit your application. And until you hit this red button, you can make changes. But once you hit that red submit, it's gone to me. So it's sent off to the system, and you have now submitted an application. So I know that was a lot to take in. So thank you for bearing with us. I'm going to see if I can switch back to my slides now. And let's see if I can find my slides. Give me 1 second. And may need to see if I can share. Okay. Let me escape out of here and go back and reshare my screen. And we're going to, from current slide, let's see. Maybe I can share now. And let me see if I now have a ability to share my projected screen. No, it's not going to do it. Of course not. Okay. So we're just going to, you're going to see my notes. It'll be okay. So you can now see the application deadlines. And again, I'll be sharing these with you. And you now see there are other ways, as we mentioned, that you can get assistance. I'll be glad to do a one-on-one with you. And there's other webinars you can check out on our website. Tuesdays and Thursdays are the days I try to have some time available for those and other resources. So I did want to mention a couple things real quickly. We still have the Meet the Funders that we did with Berkeley County that shows you some other state agencies and other entities where you can make applications. And this is very helpful. Some of the details may have changed, but a lot of this is similar. You can check that out on our webinar page. American Battlefield Trust does field trip grants. Didn't know that until recently, so check those out. And this is one of the groups that we learned about with America 250. And they have semi-quincentennial grants available if you have a property that is on the National Register or is eligible for the National Register. This is something you definitely want to think about. And their time period goes up to 1800. So they have a little broader time period. You can also talk more with Virginia Harness, who's our National Register contact here at the SHPO office at Archives. So you can ask her if you have questions about that. And this is a system that I didn't know about until I went to DC. The Institute of Museum and Library Services, they have quite a few grants. And if you want to get your feet wet with the grant, they say this is the easiest one to work with. And wonderful gentleman presented for this. Their deadline's November 15th, and the award date would be September 1st of 2025. So they only do it once a year, but you've got time if you are interested in your museum or library in getting a grant. This is one that I think a lot of people need to look at, and I hope to have him do a little webinar for us as well. If you're looking for foundations, the State Library has some amazing stuff on their website, and they also do consultations. So check out the State Library grant information. They do webinars as well. If you're not part of your 250 committee, please get involved. And just a quick teaser for the symposium that's coming up, Francis Marion Symposium and the American Revolution Symposium. If you're not registered, you can learn a lot at those two events. And we have two commission meetings coming up this fall that I wanted to tag. We have August the 22nd and 23rd in Spartanburg, and then we'll be in Camden for the Camden Resolves anniversary, the 250th. And the Camden District Resolves. And we'll also have our gathering of the County 250s and our commission meeting that will be open to the public. So we are here to help, and we are glad to help you with anything that we can assist with. So and anybody have any questions for Molly and Tyler and myself, who are all on the call today? So thanks for your patience. I know that was a very long webinar, but is there anything that I can help with?
Heather, this is Phyllis at Roper Mountain. I know I sent you an email the other day. Can you explain again? And I know I've asked you a couple times, and I'm sorry that I get confused easily.
Okay.
About the match because I'm looking at the website about the Premier projects.
Mm-hmm.
And it says 25 total budget, which I understand that.
Yeah.
But then it says tip for figuring match, divide the grant request amount by 0.75 and then multiply that by 0.25.
So
That's
a
confusing to me.
Sure. Best practice is to figure out what you need, period, the total budget, and then take 25% of that total budget and you have your match amount. But unfortunately, a lot of people do it backwards. And that the tip is there for those who know how much they want to ask for. So if you know how much you want to ask for, you can divide that amount. So you're asking for $100,000. You would divide that amount by 0.75. So then you know that $100,000 is 0.75 percent of what amount, and it would be what 133,000, I think is the example I have on there. So then you know that 25% of that total budget is now $33,000. Does that make sense? Best practice, know what you need to overall and figure out 25% of that, because it is 25% or 20% if it's a major grant of the total budget, not the
Okay.
ask.
All right.
All right. Anybody else? And you said there was a question, Tyler, in the chat earlier. So great question. So I don't know if y'all could hear, but Tyler was saying, do we have an example of a master plan? And I've given a few like dots that you would need in your master plan on our website. But what I would suggest, I will try to get a good example is the one that was created by the folks at Historic Camden and also the Jasper. They both did a very nice job of those. And I'll see if I can share those. I'll get permission to share those with you guys as two examples of master plans that were shared with the commission. Both got approved by the commission in the last cycle.
Hey, Heather, Tim McElhenney here. So when I worked for the Air Force, our money had a certain length of time that it had to be obligated, put on contract. So when we're working our master plan, do y'all have, for example, the R&D money, 2 years? If we hadn't done anything with it in 2 years, we'd lose it. How is your money, when we plan it out, is there a
Yeah,
time?
so we are trying to get as many things ready for 2026 as we can. So I think you saw maybe the major grants are 2 years, and then premier projects are through 2033. We can work with you, and we do have contract amendment ability, that Molly can approve if you need an extension. But we're really trying to get things done in time for things to be available for 2026 right now. That's our big push. So,
I have a
and then
question, Tim.
monthly grants, we're hoping you can get done in a year. Sorry, go ahead, Annie.
Can a mural be an IMLS grant?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
Awesome. We've got a fantastic mural that someone in our community designed. And, it's like a $30,000 mural, and he's got America 250 on it. And I thought, I wonder if that's going to make a difference, but that might be worth looking into, huh?
What I would say is that the Institute of Museum and Library Services, they are once a year, so make sure your timeline works with that. Right. They approve about 33%. So you really need to do a one-on-one consultation with Mark, I believe his name is, the gentleman. I'll get you his contact information. Sign up for a one-on-one. He'll be able to tell you. I don't manage that one, obviously. So he would be able to tell you how what kind of chance you would have with that. But they seem to be pretty flexible on a lot of things for those grants. And he said making sure that you are talking about the time frame being short, that you're getting ready for 2026, that might put you above another project somewhere else because you have a limited time frame that you're trying to hit.
Now, this mural has America 250 in it, but it has an American flag, an eagle, and the Statue of Liberty. And I'm thinking, well, how relevant is that to
So I
evolution?
should clarify, and we can talk more offline, Annie, but
Okay.
the the Institute of Museum and Library Services, it's not specific to 250. You can get, I mean, forever and ever, they put those out there all the time. That does not have to be specific to 250. But it can be.
Yeah.
And that gives it sense of urgency if you're trying to get it done in time for. And that's something that might give you a leg up, but it doesn't have to be 250 related if you're going for one of their grants. For one of our grants, it does. It does have
Okay.
to
Right.
relate to America, and particularly we love it if it relates to South Carolina's role. So something to do with South Carolina's part in that. It would have to be 1770 to 1783 for us, but certainly
Right.
not for them.
Okay, all right. Well,
Yeah.
that's good because we also have the one with the marker that we want to do on the back of the archives, which is a lot
Yeah.
less than this other
And
big thing.
And we
So,
can
and
talk,
that's-
we can talk details offline. So I know, is anybody else that has, Miss Marie. Hi, how are you, Marie?
I'm good. Thank you, Heather, for everything that you're doing and will continue to do.
Thank you.
I have a question about the historic tourism and marketing part. Is that a particular type of grant, or like the monthly, major, or premier, or is that just an overall?
So any of those types that we talked about, you can apply for under any of those funding opportunities. So you would have, when you go into the system, you're going to be looking for the funding opportunity once you decide how much you're asking for. So again, monthly is 15,000 or less, and on from there. And then under each one of those headings, you will choose your type, and your type could be the tourism. Now, do I think that, you'd have to really make a good case if you're spending, premier project money? Sure. Yeah, we've not had a precedent of that yet, of spending that much money on marketing, but there could be, make your case. So yep, they're all competitive at this point, except for those last organizing grants that for counties that haven't gotten those yet. So
And if we're marketing a historic tourism event, can we charge admission, or does it have to be free to the public?
good question. Again, it does have to have a free component. It does have to have an accessibility component for the public because it's the public's money. And so it either needs to be free, have some kind of digital online presence that's free, or it needs to have reduced cost. You'll see that language a lot with the humanities grants. It needs to have a reduced charge, so you're not so you don't have to be super rich to be able to attend an event. So that's key. Or like a lot of museums have a free Sunday or something like that. That counts as having access. So
I'm sorry, you're saying a reduced charge for
an event, you could have a reduced charge that would count as, make your case that reduced charge is your public access because you're keeping it from being too expensive.
okay. And well, what's the process?
And so I realized how long I was talking. Sorry, y'all. Yeah.
So that's it for me. We do get the SCPRT tag grant. So we're already in the system, but it's just a matter of separating everything because we do have 3 other museums that we work with too. So
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions right now?
I have a quick question, Heather.
Sure.
Hi. My name's
Hi.
Jenna. I'm in Sumter County. And I just was hoping that can you clarify the museum, what you kind of mentioned earlier about the museum and library style exhibit grants, so they don't have to be specific to 250. And who did you say that was through? I'm sorry.
So they're two different things. One is the museum and library style grants that's a type under our system. That does have to be 250 specific. And so that would be a good example. Sumter Museum got the, $50,000 to do the new Sumter exhibit, the interpretive center there at the museum. But if you are applying for the federal grant, the Institute for Museums and Library Services is the organization at the federal level that gives out grants every year. And those would not have to be 250 specific. So if you're looking for operational or I don't know if they do operational, but they do event driven, and you can do different phases and you can apply multiple times, and really interesting opportunities there to leverage what you're doing for 250th into a larger ask from them.
So if we were doing from the years, because we're doing the Thomas Sumter Center, but if we wanted to elaborate on the years from 1770 to 1783, after our Thomas Sumter, we could potentially apply for the grant through the federal for exhibits or panels.
So if you're wanting to get outside of our time range and would like to apply through them, you could certainly do that. Yeah, and it's competitive. Like I said, they say they approve about 33% of their grants each year.
But we could do it within the same time period as the 250.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's why I mentioned it. So there's more money out there in other places, and you can use that as your match. So if you wanted to apply for the same project for two different two different grant programs, you can use match as long their match. You can't use other federal funds on the federal level, but you could use state funds. I believe. On their side. For us, you can use federal or state money as a match as long as you do receive it.
Okay. And real quick, just to clarify, so if we had the Thomas Sumter exhibit center and we were wanting to do traveling trunks to expand on an exhibit to go out into other communities, would that be an educational grant, or would that be
I would probably put that under type as if you're doing traveling trunks, I'd probably put that under education, but you could also put it under it really doesn't 100% matter when you go to types under our system. It really is to help you guys know what we're looking for under those types. So I think either one would work as long as you're explaining your program fully.
Okay. And last question, and if we wanted to use as our center to find other Thomas Sumter exhibits out within the state, or would that be an extension of a center project, or would that be some a separate grant that we could apply for within the
I think that would fall under what we're working on right now. So I think we're meeting in just a little while to talk more about the program. So we can discuss that in the meeting in just a little bit. So
okay, perfect. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Anybody else? We will be sending a follow-up, so look for that in your email. Anybody that got the link this morning, I'll be sending follow-up links, and once we have, it'll take me probably a day to get this recording all squared away and up on YouTube. So thank you everybody for attending, unless we have any other last-minute questions. Mincy, do you have your hand raised? Mincy, is it? Wait to see if somebody needs to unmute themselves with your hand raised there. Okay. Well, everybody have a great day. Thank you for your patience with this over an hour event. So I appreciate everybody and your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.